This is the Mobile Tech Podcast, brought to you by worldpodcasts.com. Now here's your host, Tech Girl, Miriam Joie.
Brought to you by Audible. Stay tuned for a special offer at the end of the show. Hi, and welcome to the Mobile Tech Podcast. I'm your host, Miriam Joie, and today is Friday, October 16th, 2020, and my guest is the excellent Rich Woods of Neowin. Hi, Rich. How are you?
I'm doing great. I'm always happy to be here.
Super. So you saw the topics. We kind of developed them together on Twitter over the last couple of days. And man, what a week it's been. I have been writing nonstop, like since the beginning of last weekend. And finally, all my reviews have been published. I'm sure you're in the same boat.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Obviously, Pixel 5. I don't actually have the OnePlus 8T yet. And then, of course, we had the iPhone 12 this week, so that's going to be a thing that's coming up. So a lot of cool stuff. You know, if you're into smartphones, this was like the week.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy. Let me bring up the notes and we can get started. So the first initial thing I know we're going to talk about for sure, and you covered, because here's the thing, Rich. I feel very ill-equipped to talk about Apple because
really,
with all these reviews I've been writing, I haven't had time to keep up. Like, I didn't watch the event. I basically just read like a recap from The Verge, which I'll link in the show notes. And then, I looked at your stories, which also I'm going to link in the show notes. So maybe you can start by basically like leading this and telling us, what the hell are we looking at in terms of iPhone this year?
That's a good question, because it gets a little more complicated every year.
There's some interesting things in there, right?
There are some interesting things. There's some things that are not so interesting too, but there are 4 models this year. As we knew that was going to happen. There's the one that's new is the iPhone 12 mini, which has a 5.4 inch screen. And that's kind of interesting on its own, because it's a little bit smaller than an iPhone 8 or the new iPhone SE. And then of course we have the iPhone 12. That's kind of cool because they gave it everything's got an OLED display this year. And that was something that was kind of lagging on.
Yeah, I'm really happy about that.
Yeah, right, for sure. And then we got the iPhone 12 Pro and the Pro Max. The Pro Max is the one that I'm particularly interested in because it's got the camera upgrades.
Oh my God, yeah, we're going to talk about that because that. So far I seem to have kept track of what's going on. There's one more thing I want to throw in there that got me excited in this weirdest of ways.
5G?
Because no. Sadly, I'm sorry, folks. I'm sorry for the audience, but no, 5G does not have me excited. Although I have to admit that, and we can talk about this, but Verizon kind of piggybacking on the iPhone launch for its sub-6 5G launch was really interesting. But the MagSafe magnetic thingy, like basically they're using Qi charging, which the phone has, but then they're adding magnets to the back of the phone so that they can have like an ecosystem of accessories that cling on to the phone, including like a puck like the Apple Watch uses, but a bigger one that plugs into the back of the phone, right?
That seems really cool. Yes. Obviously, MagSafe is a brand that they've used for a long time, the old MacBook chargers and stuff. And I think a lot of people were excited just to hear it. But yeah, it looks cool. So it looks like there's going to be a lot of accessories, chargers. It'll be fun.
Yeah, I'm particularly excited about the Mini and the Maxi, as I'm calling it now.
Yeah, the 2 that are not available for pre-order today.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting actually that also, but you know what else? Like, I'm just going to throw stuff in the air because this podcast is going to be a little combobulated because I'm not very awake. I was up really late last night finishing my Pixel 5 review. But you know what? The other thing that is like the pricing is so weird, right? Like they announced a certain price, but then it's actually $30 more. Like,
so I don't know if you saw it today, but that price they announced, it was $699 and $799 for the Mini and the 12. And that was originally only for AT&T and Verizon, and they had a price of $729 and $829 for unlocked T-Mobile and Sprint. But today they changed it. It's still $30 more for unlocked, but T-Mobile and I don't know what they're calling it, Sprint, T-Mobile by Sprint, whatever. But yeah, those are now $699 and $799.
Wait, I have a name for that. Metro by T-Mobile, Magenta by Sprint. Oh, God. This is what happens when I get snappy.
Oh, we're getting off topic.
Yeah, you got it. So, look, the reality is that actually I don't get it. Like, why are we getting $30 more for an unlock? What the hell is this?
I don't know. I assume that it's some kind of deal with Verizon, because Verizon was heavily present at that event. They talked about their 5G. Obviously, they launched their sub-6 5G network, and I assume that deal eventually extended to other carriers. I assume that it's an $829 phone that carriers are selling for $799.
That would make sense, actually. I mean, there's always been a bit of a subsidy going on, and a lot of people buy their phones through subsidies. Even though now they're no longer rolled into the plans, people are still using that, all the benefits from the financing offers they have. Some of them are like 0% interest. Some of them buy one, get one. Some of them are like you get a special deal if you buy it on a monthly payment. And I really never understand, like, if there's no interest or any kind of like benefit to the carrier, is it just lock-in that they're looking for then? What is the deal here?
I mean, it is lock-in. It's we used to have contracts with cancellation fees, and now they say that there's no contract and we get a payoff fee.
Yeah, you basically get locked in because you finance your phone through them, not because of the plan itself.
Right.
Yeah. Freaking carriers. I kind of hate them. Sorry.
Yes. Not kind of.
I mean, okay. So let's kind of rewind a bit. So now the Verizon thing, I think I don't want to expend too much time on, because look, it's about time Verizon gives us sub-6 5G. Now it's low band. It's 850 megahertz N5, which is the same as AT&T in low band. It is DSS, dynamic spectrum sharing, so it splits it up with 4G LTE. So I expect it to be about as slow as 5G on AT&T, which, as we all know, is about the same speed, actually slower than 4G, according to Sasha Segan and PCMag.
Right.
So, I mean, it's something, right? I'm not going to complain.
Have you run any speed tests with Verizon 5G just yet? Their sub-6?
I don't have it.
Yeah, you have it on the wing, don't you?
I don't think they have sub-6 here.
Oh, well, I ran a speed test. It's
Do you have sub-6 on Verizon already?
It says 5G on there. It said 5G and Ookla.
It doesn't say ultra wideband 5G. I haven't actually tested the LG yet because I still need to unbox it.
Okay.
We will talk about the LG wing in a minute, but yeah. So what is it like? What are you seeing?
I got 50 megabits per second. I did one with T-Mobile at the same time. I got 40 megabits per second. Nothing particularly special, but again, I'm on Long Island. I'm not in Manhattan, where I'm sure they have faster
I'm
speeds.
saying I don't have it, but I assume I don't have it. It's not like I know I don't have it.
I didn't expect to have it.
And New York always gets. I mean, you're not right in New York proper, but you guys generally get that stuff earlier.
Yeah.
San Francisco, trust me, is kind of like the backwoods of any 5G deployment.
Really?
Oh, guess what? So I was checking the coverage map because I was like, okay, well, if there is this new 5G coming, I want a piece of it. And lo and behold, we now have a millimeter wave in San Francisco.
Really?
Yeah, and it's actually a few blocks from my house. Now, I don't have, until this LG wing that I received, which I have still got to unbox, so I have no idea what's going on because I don't know what I'm doing this week because everything is crazy because I'm writing too much. Until that, I did not have a Verizon SIM that was provisioned for 5G. So I couldn't, even though I have had devices with millimeter wave support, even if I had discovered I had millimeter wave before yesterday, I don't think I could have tested it because that's the other thing that drives me nuts, Rich. T-Mobile, you get a SIM from them, right? Like especially any postpaid SIM, and you get 5G. Like I'm running a SIM that's 4 years old, and I still get 5G on my freaking phones. My two AT&T accounts, I have two lines that I pay nothing for because they're grandfathered in, and it's just for testing, right? I don't use them as a main thing. I have no 5G on. And when I called them up about it, they said, well, you need to provision them. And I'm like, well, go ahead. And they're like, oh, it's going to cost you more. We have to change your plan. I'm like, what kind of crack are you smoking? Like, T-Mobile never asked me to pay more for my 5G. So that's when I got angry with the carriers again. Is Verizon asking for more money for 5G, or are they requiring special provisioning?
I don't know the answer to that. We're
going to have to figure that out.
Yeah, my only experience with Verizon 5G is with the wing. I'm a T-Mobile subscriber.
It? Okay, yeah.
Well, I mean, with the sub-6 5G, I did have do some millimeter wave testing a while back because they have that in Manhattan.
I have a lot of Verizon SIMs floating around that work, and a lot of Verizon devices that are millimeter wave capable, like my Galaxy Note 20 Ultra.
Yeah.
But I've never seen, even though I said I live a block away from potential millimeter wave, even if I go in that area, I've never seen it light up. So I assume that my SIMs are just not provisioned. And this is the thing that drives me nuts. It's like, you know what else drives me nuts? Sorry, we're going to have a carrier rant. Like,
we could have a millimeter wave rant too if you want. I could go on about that.
I'm reserving the millimeter wave rant for the Pixel 5, okay? Let's just hang tight, okay? So here's the thing about the rant I was going to have is that I have a 5G provision SIM from AT&T right now. That is not mine. It's one of a reunit, right? So I'm thinking to myself, like, follow the logic here with me, okay? Mm-hmm. I have a OnePlus AT in my hand. Or say I have another device in my hand that in the specs lists clearly band N5, 850 megahertz, which AT&T uses. And I'm like, hooray, I have a device that's 5G low band compatible with AT&T's network. And I have a SIM in my hand, 5G for AT&T. And I put it in that phone and I get LTE. And here's the thing. Even if I go in the, you can go in the network settings by typing, like, I think it's *pound 4636 ** in the dialer, and you get a special engineering menu that lets you enable whatever radios you want. And I turn on 5G. I go like, 5G is not an option in the normal menus. I'm going to force 5G on. I force 5G on. I set the APN to the better APN for 5G. And guess what I get?
4G?
LTE. No, but it's better than that. It's better than that, Rich. I get a 5G logo. I get the 5G logo. It goes, ooh, I'm in a 5G area. I have 5G network available. And then he goes, kidding. Here, have some 4G LTE.
Wow.
And so that's what I don't understand about AT&T. It's like they seem to be whitelisting the phones. That's actually what I've heard. I need to ask Sasha Segan. But I'm hearing that they're whitelisting the phones. Anyway, back to the iPhones, because we're totally derailing here because I'm just fixating on the carriers again. But kudos to Verizon for finally having something else, something that more than 10 people can use, right? Because millimeter wave really, it's really cool, but like...
Even if you're one of those 10 people, it's not that cool. Like, it doesn't work when it's in your pocket or indoors, or...
It just doesn't work.
Right. It's... Which
is why, if you read my Pixel 5 review on Hot Hardware today, I get really mad. And my editor was like, dude, I toned you down because you were so angry about this. And I'm like, look, $700 for that phone is ridiculous when I'm never going to use millimeter wave. But okay, I don't want to have that conversation now. iPhones.
Right.
iPhones. So iPhones, look, I'm super excited about a couple of things here. Number one, I'm excited about the industrial design. Going back to that iPhone 4, especially for the Pro versions, which have a stainless steel rim, right, instead of an aluminum rim. I'm super excited about the OLEDs, about the MagSafe thing, even though it's really silly and gimmicky, but it's such a simple idea and a simple solution to a problem, right? Like, how inefficient is my wireless charging every time I use it on these pads that I have? Like, on the stand-up pads, you can center it a little bit better, it's easier. But like on the lay flat pads, like, I have an old like Nokia one that I swear to God, I charge at 0.5 watt on that thing. Not because it's 0.5 watt rated, but because I never line it up properly. You know what I'm saying? Right. Like, everything gets really warm. A fire starts in the corner of my office. And so the magnets are kind of a clever thing.
Definitely.
But that being said, I think that the thing that I'm the most excited about, the two things I'm most excited about, are the Mini and the camera system in the Maxi, as I'm calling it now. That's it. It's got a name. Okay. It's Mini, Pro, Mini, regular Pro, and Maxi in my world.
Well, what's cool about the Mini is that it's the exact same camera as the 12, which they did not do with the Pro this year.
It's cheaper, right? Like, this is so weird that you think Apple would charge you more for making a small phone that's pretty nicely spec'd? That would be an Apple thing to do. But no, apparently, I guess the bill of materials is slightly less because it's got less glass and less aluminum. But the guts are identical, aren't they? Is there anything that's different on it?
No, they were very clear that The Mini is just a smaller version.
Isn't that smaller than the SE?
It's a little bit smaller.
Wow, this is the dream phone.
Tiny bit smaller, yeah.
This is a dream phone for so many people, and it's not for me. Like, there's no doubt that with my butterfinger thumbs of doom, you can quote me on that, folks. Butterfinger thumbs of doom, I will not be able to use the 12 mini. No way.
I'll tell you, I'm looking at the Pro Max for myself, although I don't know if I can actually spend real money on these phones. I don't know if I could suggest anybody spend real money on these phones. And I'll tell you why. Because there's no fingerprint sensors on any of them.
Yeah,
Okay.
well, I think that's something that we would all love. And I think that Apple should be smart and do dual ID, right? Face ID and or fingerprint ID. But they couldn't. Like, I think this was engineered, Rich, way before COVID, right?
I know. But I mean, they should have thought of something or thought of a way to make Face ID work with a mask on.
Yeah, they need to, right?
Because how do you tell someone to buy a phone in 2020 that doesn't have a fingerprint sensor? You know, Google got rid of the fingerprint sensor last year. It's back this year. I don't believe that it couldn't be done.
No, it can be done, and I want it to be done, and I wouldn't be surprised the iPhone 13s will have it. And of course, hope by then, I really hope COVID's going to be mostly behind us.
But then you just wait for the iPhone 13.
Can you walk us through the pricing? Because that's the one thing I'm really hazy on.
Well, 12 minis starts at $699, assuming you get a carrier model.
Yeah, that's the same price. So the $30 only extra is only for the unlocked 12 mini and 12, right?
Right.
And so that price you just said is the same as the iPhone 11 was, yeah?
Yes.
And I think I went to Apple's website yesterday, but it's now $599, the iPhone 11.
Right.
By the way, if you want, you can still buy an iPhone 11. It's a great deal at $599.
You can still buy a 10R also that was on there.
Really?
Yes. Wow. Yes, but they killed the 11 Pro and the 11 Pro Max. So $699 for the 12 mini, $799 for the 12, $30 more if you want unlocked, although carrier models are actually unlocked if you just buy them from an Apple store. And then the Pro is still $999, and then the Pro Max is $1099.
Ooh, $1099, that's rough. And so what is the storage? I heard horror stories about storage again. Are we stuck with 64 gig at the base? Because I'm going to kill them if we are.
For the mini and the 12, it's 64 in the base.
Oh, Apple.
64 is not terrible.
Nah, as soon as you shoot video, it's a problem.
Yeah.
That's all. Like, it's fine if you're just doing music and photos. But if, like, at 4K, and of course you want to do 4K. Because the front cameras on iPhones is 4K 60. You know, you're going to be vanity shots at 60 frames per second all day, all night. I mean, you're going to run out of storage. It should be 128.
So, yeah, they have 128. The Pro starts at 128. Then they have 256 and 512. And then the 12 and the 12 mini is just 64, 128, and 256.
Thanks, Rich, for being on top of all of this for me today. I really appreciate it.
I'm looking it up because it's too confusing. I'm actually looking that up while we're talking.
Well, yeah. I mean, it's Apple, so you expect it to be a little wonky. There's always something, right? I mean, don't get me wrong. These phones, honestly, I'm really impressed. If I had to ask for two things,
I feel like they're getting a little more confusing every year.
Yeah, 4 phones. Like, can you imagine people who have to review iPhones right now? Like, I want to just take a second to feel bad for my colleagues who, unlike me, also deal with iPhones, because some of them had to review the iPhone. No, they had to review the OnePlus 8T this week, the Google 4a 5G, the Google 5 this week, and next week or whatever soon, they're going to have to review the 4 iPhones. So that's going to be tough. I mean, I'm sure they're going to split it up, but Apple's pretty particular about who gets to review what, right? Like, when I was at Engadget, I couldn't lend my phones to be reviewed by someone else, even though I did. But Brad actually wrote a review under my byline back in those days because we couldn't do it. And so then eventually we switched the byline back to him, you know. But anyway, anything else that stands out for you for these iPhones? To me, the misses, as you said, were it would have been nice to have a fingerprint sensor on the power lock key, just like the iPads Air, the new ones. Yeah. But it also would have been nice to have 120 hertz displays, at least on the Pros.
Yeah.
And of course, we knew that wasn't going to happen, but at the same time, why couldn't it happen, right?
Right.
I mean, I think if you're an iPhone user, unless you have an iPad Pro, which is 120 hertz, you probably won't notice too much. But if you're an Android user, let me tell you, you go to an iPhone and all of a sudden you're like, what is this? Is the world in slow motion?
Right.
Not that the iPhones are slow, but by any means. They're way faster, actually, than most Android phones, to be honest.
The world has a really low refresh rate.
Yeah, it's just the clunkiness. Clunkiness is the word of the refresh. So, anything else stand out about the iPhones for you?
The only thing that stands out is the only other thing I don't think we mentioned is Dolby Vision video recording because
that is super cool.
Yeah, because remember, Apple wasn't doing HDR video recording.
Never,
right?
They never did.
I don't think they did. I think they actually said that. Actually, I'm fairly certain of it because Qualcomm always made fun of them when we'd be in Maui because they'd have some new HDR standard that they're pointing at and be like, why isn't Apple doing any of this? Well, now they are. But it's pretty cool.
I mean, if you're going to do this kind of stuff, partnering with Dolby makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, for sure.
I used to work there. They know what they're doing. Trust me, folks. A lot of people think of Dolby as just this kind of like Lucas, just a licensing company. They make their money from licensing stuff. I mean, Lucas is really good at that. I've worked for both companies, so I can tell you a lot. No, I can't. Probably not. Probably a bad idea to talk about trade secrets on a podcast. But I can tell you that there's mad respects to the folks at Lucas and the folks at Dolby. So the other thing I want to quickly mention is the new HomePod.
Oh, yeah.
$99. So, actually, let's rewind.
Are you going to buy a HomePod now?
No.
For $99?
No way.
Okay.
The reason I'm rewinding is because 2 or 3 weeks ago, when the Google event happened, I never even mentioned the new Nest Audio or whatever it's called, Nest. I think it's called Nest Audio. And I just want to say, as somebody who's an audio person at the core, I mean, I've always worked in video games audio and I love audio and I'm a bit of an audiophile. While these speakers are not going to be as good as, the kind of audio that I want, I have to give them props, all of them, like Apple, Google, everyone, Amazon, for making these decent sounding, pretty high quality speakers that you can put all over your house for playing music. And most importantly, you can talk to the assistant. I know that's the big part for a lot of people, but I just have to say, this is a nice development in the world that we live in the fiery, crazy, mad world that we live in. That's all.
Okay.
I just want to acknowledge that.
What I like about those smart speaker devices is that there's really getting to be a variety of them. Like if you want that speaker that has that super awesome sound quality, you can have that. What I like is I don't use it for listening to music much, but I have a Lenovo Smart Display with Google Assistant in my living room. It's got the Google Photos albums it's like a digital picture frame when I'm not using it. Like that's perfect for me. I just love that they have this whole ecosystem of different kinds of devices that can fit to whatever the user's needs are.
Yeah, no, it's super cool. And, I find that it's like a lot of things in audio. Convenience always trumps quality. But finally, the quality is catching up now. And it's the same with headphones. Like True Wireless in the early days was crap. And now it's actually getting pretty damn decent. So kudos to Apple for that. Anything else they announced? I don't think so.
iPad Air pre-orders today. That's the only thing they surprised us with.
Oh, that's right.
Remember, they just told us October. And they just kind of announced it today. Like, hey, pre-orders are live.
I missed that. Was it in the middle of the night or something?
No, it was at, actually for you, it was 5 a.m.
Yeah, it's the middle of the night for me. Well, I think I was just wrapping up my Pixel 5 review, actually.
Yeah.
So we talked about Verizon. I think it's very smart of them to have latched onto this iPhone event for the Sub 6 announcement. One last thing, Rich, maybe you know, maybe you don't, but I want to ask this question, and maybe somebody can answer by tweeting at me later. Is there any other phone other than the iPhones that support the sub 6 gigahertz 5G on Verizon? I mean, the band is N5 850 megahertz. That's on a lot of phones already. I'm wondering, like, obviously the LG Wing we're going to talk about has that, but I'm wondering, say, if I take that SIM from the LG Wing and put it in my Galaxy Note 20 Ultra, which is unlocked, it'll be interesting to see if I get sub 6 5G on Verizon as well. So we'll find out.
I do think that some devices need a software. I was trying to find out more information. There seems to be very little out there. So we'll just all ping Sasha.
Yeah, Sasha, can you help? Like he's going to start charging us money soon. even the journalists, like not just the industry, right?
Right.
All right, so let's talk about the OnePlus 8T. I've reviewed it. My review is on Hot Hardware and Geekspin. I actually wrote 2 separate reviews that are kind of more, one is more lifestyle and the other one's more nerdy.
Mm-hmm.
And you don't have one yet, but you've read the reviews. You've probably read my reviews.
There's also not a whole lot to know. Cause,
I mean, it's pretty obvious, right? It's
right.
basically a slightly upgraded 8. So, but it costs a lot of money comparatively to the 8, which is currently on sale. So,
right.
like, what's your gut feeling after? Like, you don't have one yet, so it'd be really interesting to hear what your take is before you actually get your hands on it. And, you know, do you think we're all crazy for basically all agreeing that's not good value anymore? Or do you think that we're just being a demanding crazy people?
First of all, this is a fairly common problem where some new product comes along, it's an iterative upgrade, and the old product has been heavily discounted by now, so now it doesn't seem like a worthwhile upgrade. But I see what they're trying to do. I also see why there was no Pro, because you look at how small of an upgrade it is from the 8 to the 8T. What would they have done with the Pro? But 120 hertz is good. Personally, I would take wireless charging over 65-watt wired charging.
Yeah, me too. 100%.
Yeah, that's one of those must-have things. You know, there's still no telephoto lens, which is...
Yeah, it's becoming an issue for me because at the price, right? If it was $600, I'd be like, okay, fine.
Could I ask you, do you find macro lenses to be useful in real life? Okay.
No, I mean, you read my reviews. They're just for camera count. They do nothing.
Like the with the Motorola One 5G, they had an interesting, because we were on the same briefing for that, and they had an interesting implementation of it with the ring light, and I mean, I don't know, like I see what they're trying to do with some of this stuff, but I never actually use this stuff in
That's exactly
real
the
life.
problem. It's like it's not like at least Moto did it right. They put a ring light on it. They put autofocus on their thing. It's 5 megapixels. It's okay. But then we have all this slew of phones that are more expensive than the Moto One 5G that have like just really crappy 2 megapixel fixed focus macros, like the OnePlus 8 or the Nord.
Right.
Now, at least the OnePlus 8T bumps that up to 5, but without autofocus, you know this from any camera, especially one that is super focus sensitive like a macro, you can't get a clear shot ever.
Right.
You have to physically move your body and your hands shake enough that you're not going to get a clear shot, not because of motion blur, but because of focus blur.
Right.
And so it's cheaper because there's no AF, of course, but it adds to the camera count, which is nice, but it's no substitute for telephoto. And on a phone with a 64 or 48 megapixel camera, like the 8T has a 48, which is, by the way, identical, the main camera to the 8, it's a great camera.
That's the IMX 586, if I'm not mistaken.
586, yeah. If with a camera like that, you're basically like, you can zoom up to 2-3x without any problems. But so if you put a telephone on a phone like that, you really need a telephoto that's 3x or more. And so, yes, I'm asking for a telephoto, but I'm asking for a very specific telephoto. I'm asking for a 3x with optical image stabilization. And that costs definitely more than a macro. There's no doubt. But I feel that putting a macro is kind of an insult at $750. Especially one without autofocus. And I want to also rewind again back to the OnePlus 7T last year, right? That sold for what? $599 or at the time, and now at the end there was on discount for $499. That phone had 3 cameras. It had that same main sensor, OIS and all, as the 8 and 8T. Right? So IMX 586, same awesome sensor. Then it had an ultra wide, just like the 8 and 8T, no problems there. And then it had a telephoto, and that telephoto was okay, but it was a little lacking because only 2x, and it didn't have OIS, but it had all that. And then they went to the OnePlus 8 and dropped that telephoto for a macro that was crap. And now they're giving us a slightly higher res macro. Go home, OnePlus, you're drunk. Like, this is not how you go forward. Like, I would have honestly taken an 8 gigabyte, 128 gig version of the 8T over that 12 gig, 256 base. That's the base storage and RAM in the US. Nobody needs that.
No.
Nobody needs that. Yeah. If you're buying a phone for $1,000, I can imagine you'd want that and you'd be like, yeah, give me that. But if you're like, If you're buying a phone for $750, please don't go on storage and RAM. Do 8128 and then give us a better camera. Give us wireless charging. Those are the two things really. Like the main camera is good. The ultra wide is fine. But that other stuff is crazy. And here's the other thing. Go back to the 7T for a second. The 7T had a macro. It wasn't a separate camera. It was the ultra wide. And you know how they did it? It had autofocus on the ultra wide. Mm-hmm. So what they would do is when you hit the macro button in the camera app, it would, in software, tell the ultra wide to turn into a macro. And it would also kind of like shrink the field of view by zooming in digitally 2x, right? So it worked.
Yeah.
Why don't they do that?
See, they could do that with 2 lenses here, instead of the 3 that they have.
There's 4. There's another sensor. It's a monochrome sensor. Nobody knows what.
Oh, right.
I couldn't get a straight answer. Read my review on Hot Hardware. I asked OnePlus, and they were like, "Oh, when you take monochrome photos with a monochrome filter on the main camera, that 4th camera assists the main sensor with dynamic range, light, and
definitely sounds like a way to say you have 4 cameras.
Why don't you stick a sticker in the back of the phone that looks like a camera and stop insulting us?" Anyway, that's my beef with the 8T. The 8T, if the 8T cost... So here's the other problem you have to understand, right? Rich, you know this. You've looked at the pricing right now. The 8T is $750 with 12 256. The 8 is $599 right now with 8 128. You're not going to buy the 7T.
Right, I wouldn't.
Like, yes, you get 120 hertz versus 90 hertz, yes. You get a flat display. That's the other thing. It's no curved edge BS like the 8 and 8 Pro. But
same thing, the 7T was flat as well.
Yeah, exactly. If you're a normal human, why would you spend more for just a little bit more like that in the areas you don't care about? And here's the other killer. Here's the reason that the 8T is just out the window for me, at least, for my personal reason. The 8 Pro is $799 right now on sale. So that means that for $50 more, here's what you get for $50 more.
Everything except 65-watt charging and a lot more.
And you get the stupid curved edges. But you get 120 hertz. You get a much better main camera sensor, Sony IMX689, huge pixels. You get an ultra wide with the Sony IMX586. And you get a telephoto, right?
And you get wireless charging. Fast wireless charging.
And water resistance officially. Yeah.
Right.
So you're either going to buy the 8 or the 8 Pro at this point. I don't see a reason unless it discounts in the next, like it drops to like 700 or unless it drops to even 650. I don't see.
That's the thing. It probably will drop at some point. It's gonna drop, or they'll discontinue the 8. They'll have carrier deals. That's how they sell these things, because this is not the first time there's been a problem like this, where there's just that incremental upgrade. And
they haven't traditionally discontinued. You can still buy the 7T until like 3 months ago.
So one other thing about the 8T is that, just from what I've seen, is that the design feels somewhat uninspired.
I actually like it. It feels like a Samsung
There's
copy.
no interstellar glow.
Yeah, no, that's true. But I'm talking, but that color, that green, the aquamarine blue or whatever that is, that I have is insanely beautiful in person. Yes, it does have a bit of that Samsung vibe because of the camera pod shape and stuff.
Now, why have they used 3 different camera housing shapes in the last 3 generations? Like the 17 was circular, right? That was quite nice.
Yeah, I like that a lot.
Right, me too.
Yeah.
And then the 8 matched the 8 Pro, and now they have the rectangle with rounded corners that literally everyone's doing.
Yeah, you're right. It's a bit uninspired, but the thing is and I wrote this in my review too. It's like when you actually handle it, it really looks and feels like a OnePlus. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like the curves of the display, the way everything kind of feels, the notification, the alert slider on the side, like it's instantly obvious that it's a OnePlus phone in your hand.
Sure.
So I got to give them kudos that maybe appearance-wise it's a little copycat-ish, but it's fine. It's not the first time OnePlus has done weird stuff like that. They made, the 5 series look like an iPhone with the camera pod in the back, etc. So, I mean, look, I think, I don't want to go into this because we want to cover all the other stuff still today, but we talked about this on last week's show extensively, me and Jaime Rivera, and you guys should listen to it. We talked about how misguided OnePlus's strategy currently is, especially with respect to the US. The fact that they are bringing a OnePlus Nord, at least we're not sure what they're doing, but the rumors are that they're bringing a OnePlus Nord with a Snapdragon 690 because they don't want to step on the toes of the 8 and 8T that is sold by the carriers. It's like the strategy is flawed, and the whole thing with OnePlus right now, I'm not quite sure where they're going. No 8T Pro, like it's just really weird. Like, why do you want a base storage of 12 gigs and base RAM of 12 gigs and like? If
they did an 8T Pro, what would they have?
Yeah, that would make sense. Then go nuts. Like I would argue that OnePlus should make $1,000 phone that starts at $1,000 and competes straight up with the Galaxy Ultras and the 11 Pros, but at 1,000 instead of 1,200 or 13. That's what I want from them. I want the no holds barred OnePlus flagship, not effing around, give me the whole enchilada flagship. That's what I want. And I know a lot of people do too.
I think they're getting there.
But now after that, we want to drop down to 600. Like, we want to drop down to 600 with something that can squarely compete with the elephant in the room. That's the thing in my review that I wrote about. The 8T has another issue. Not only is OnePlus's own phones, older ones, undercutting it significantly and making it hard to buy, but then there's the Galaxy S20 Fan Edition.
Right.
Like, that has wireless charging. And it costs $600. Or $7. I think it's $7 now officially, but it's on sale right now. It's like, how do you compete with Samsung? Samsung's in your backyard now, stomping around going, ha 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 ha. Nice to see you, OnePlus. What you got there with the little 8T? Ha, suckers. Like, seriously. That's kind of how I feel about the whole thing. Anyway, but you know what? I think that a lot of this strategic indecision and weirdness we're seeing right now is completely reflected by the next news item, which is Carl Pei leaving OnePlus.
Yes.
I think that OnePlus has been going through a reinvention necessary because they're finally growing up, which is good for them. And,
totally.
That split the leadership into two halves. The half that wanted to kind of do one thing and the half that wanted kind of to do the Nord thing. And the Nord thing was the Carl Pei half. And now he's leaving because I think he's realizing that, I'm not trying to spread rumors, it's just my perspective here, knowing both of them, knowing the company, having followed it for a while, is that I'm sure they get along, but I think they have differences in where they want to take the company. And, Carl Pei tried to do that with the Nord, but then realized I'm better off going off and doing my own thing. And there's nothing wrong with that. That's how the tech industry works. Like, a lot of people move around.
I think he likes to be part of that scrappy upstart company, and that's not really what they are anymore. They have carrier partnerships now. They make $1,000 flagships now.
Absolutely. So I think you shouldn't read too much into it. Like, this is pretty standard fare stuff, but it also tells me that maybe things aren't quite as polished in terms of the strategy going forward with OnePlus. And that's kind of maybe what we're seeing here. I feel that just looking at the US market alone, that the AT is a strategic mistake in this time of COVID. Like, you do not bump the storage and RAM when cost is the critical part and Samsung is in your backyard. You drop that down to 128, you drop the price of the phone to $50, you're competitive with them.
Sure. Sure.
Like, what are they smoking over there? So the other thing I want to quickly touch on, because we need to talk Pixels, is that OnePlus has some new buds they announced, the Buds Z, that are $50, so I guess $20 cheaper, and they are silicone tipped, which I think a lot of people are going to really like, because I personally love the OnePlus Buds. They fit my ears well. They don't fall out. They sound fantastic. In my opinion, we've talked about this on the show at length. A lot of people don't like that kind of AirPod design. They want something with silicone tips, and this is it.
The AirPod Pro design.
Yeah. Well, this does not have active noise cancellation. It's cheaper too, which is nice.
Right,
hopefully they sound just as good, and they're cheaper, and they're going to be a winner. So we'll see. We'll get them eventually. We'll let you know, right?
That's one thing I really do appreciate about OnePlus is making those accessories that are reasonably priced, which just no one else is doing.
Well, a lot of the Chinese brands are doing, like Xiaomi and all that. We just don't see that stuff here, right? Like, you can buy $50 earbuds, true wireless, that don't suck all day long from big brands in China, all day long. Like, Like here we have to go to that weird, obscure, bad place in Amazon.com and buy something that, could have spyware in it or something. I'm joking.
Right.
But you know what I'm saying.
No.
So Pixel. You have them, right?
Yes. I have the 5.
Okay, well, what's your take on the 5?
Well, I mean, I've had it since Monday. I was supposed to get it on Saturday. I feel like I'm almost still processing. I love the screen. It's similar to the screen on the 4A, which I reviewed. When did that come out? July?
Yeah.
And the edge to edge screen is something that I feel like we needed on Pixel. I love the Pixel 4, but that huge top bezel for the Soli radar
that had to go.
Yeah, that had to go. I wish there was an XL variant for the battery life, but
I absolutely do too. I mean, I went from a 3XL to a OnePlus 8 Pro. The OnePlus 8 Pro is too big, but it meets my needs. The reason I skipped the 4XL, even though I have one, which is the first time I've had a non-Nexus or non-Pixel device as my daily driver, is because finally OnePlus gave us wireless charging. For me, that's essential.
Yes.
But I also feel that it's because the 4XL was, for me, the only thing stopping me, really, the biggest thing was the Face ID not working with all the apps I like to use. Because on iPhone, they were able to transition seamlessly, right, to Face ID. But Google somehow botched that with developers, and it took forever for like big things like banking apps to switch over. And then now there's still a lot of them missing, like the Tesla app, et cetera, et cetera. And so I'm like, I like to authenticate with my fingerprint a lot on my phone as a safety measure, for these apps. Yeah. And I can't with Face ID because that APIs are not supported by the developers. So the 4XL kind of stopped me dead in my tracks. I wanted to adopt it, but and then there are other issues of overpriced, poor battery life, not enough storage, not enough RAM. Well, actually, it wasn't too bad on
I think you mentioned on Twitter the other day that you take pictures of products with the Pixel 4 XL.
Yeah, so I use the 4 XL because of the telephoto on it.
And so do I.
As much as I like the ultra wide better, and I'm happy that they went that way with the 5, in my opinion, for the average person, that makes more sense. That telephoto is really good at taking beautiful product shots, right?
Yeah, for sure. It's and also there's something about that camera using night mode during the day and the way that the shots come out with proper lighting and everything that I just can't seem to pull off with any other camera. So I really appreciate Pixel cameras, and I was just excited that we got a new Pixel. I'm excited that we didn't talk a lot about the value of 5G in the iPhone because there isn't much and 5G here, but I wouldn't tell anybody to go out and buy a 4G only phone. So
no, you need to be somewhat foolproof, but I don't believe millimeter wave is the answer, right?
No.
So for me, here's the issue with the Pixel 5. It's a lot of it parallels the 8T. They're both fantastic phones. They're really great phones. They hit all the buttons for me, mostly except for, as I said on the 8T, the lack of wireless charging. There are some other things missing on the Pixel 5, like the bigger screen size. We just discussed that. But overall, they're really good phones with great user experiences, right? They're very different user experiences, like Oxygen OS versus like the googly apps and the googly things. Right. But they're just very valid, very good experiences. The problem is pricing. Right. So with the OnePlus 8T, we just discussed what I thought the mistakes were, going for more storage and stuff and not really bumping up the camera. And then here, for me, the problem is that I don't have an issue with the Snapdragon 765G. It's a great chip.
For sure.
But, when you can buy for the same amount of money an 865 right now, not from a Chinese company, like a legit 865 sold in the US, like again, the S20 FE or the OnePlus 8 or 8T or 8 Pro, it's like, where are you going with this pricing, Google? Like, yes, it's cheaper than the previous flagships, but it should be because it's got a lesser chip.
So how much would you have priced it for? $599?
600. 550 to 600 is a sweet spot for that phone.
But then you don't really need a 4A 5G. The thing about the 4A 5G that kind of interests me is that it really sits nicely between the 4A and the 5, where it has certain elements of the 5 with the 765G. It doesn't have the wireless charging like the regular 4A. So it really just sits between the two. again, no wireless charging is a deal breaker for me. I would go with the 5, but they have that $500 5G phone if if that's what you want.
Exactly.
It's got the same RAM, same chip, same camera.
My ideal situation would have been $350 for the 4A, $500 for the 4A 5G, and $650 for the 5 before I knew what the 5 was going to be like. So I was imagining the 5 would be $650. It would have millimeter wave would be extra, like it is with the Pixel 4a 5G. The Verizon version's more. It's got the millimeter wave stuff in it. You pay the millimeter wave tax. I expected it to be the same for the Pixel 5, which is, by the way it is abroad. The Pixel 5 abroad doesn't have millimeter wave, and if you actually look at translating the prices, it's slightly cheaper than the US version. So that's what I was expecting. But I was also expecting a bigger size as an option. I was expecting, even though I know the rumors didn't back that up, I don't know. I was expecting more camera wow. Like, it seems like they have only added like the portrait light and the ability to do.
There's not a lot of wow.
Yeah, they did. There is the night sight for portrait now. That's cool. And then the stabilization modes for video are very nice, but the video recording to start with isn't that great, right?
Right. But it seemed like the biggest thing was that they took their biggest criticism from last year and they swapped out that telephoto lens for an ultra wide lens.
And that was, to me, that's for some people that's a deal breaker, but for me that was actually the right call.
I think it was the right call too. Well, a better call would have been to use all 3.
Like, if you can't step back, you can't get an ultra wide. Like, you can always zoom in, even digitally. And I know it doesn't look as good, but the super res zoom from Google is very, very good.
It's actually pretty good, even without a telephoto lens. And I didn't feel like that lens actually helped that much because their super res zoom is that good.
My biggest gripe with the 4 and 4XL telephoto was not that it was bad, it was that the color science didn't match the main lens at all. And that the camera app will switch between lenses sometimes. Sometimes it will use the telephoto, but if the light gets a little too low, it'll switch to the main sensor and zoom it in 2x. And so when you're taking product shots and you want that kind of cool, like lifestyle shot that's a little darker maybe, the phone will struggle as to which camera to pick. And when it switches cameras, the color science doesn't match. And now you might have some shots with certain white balance and some shots with other white balance. And so I ended up spending a lot of time editing the photos after the fact because of it. And all that Google needs to do to fix that, it gives us a pro mode where we can manually adjust the white balance.
Right.
So that's what I'm saying by not wow by the camera. It's a great camera system, but it doesn't bring anything other than the ultra wide, which it should have had last year.
Yeah.
It doesn't bring in anything that radically new even in terms of
certainly not.
Like computational photography goodness. And so pro mode would have helped.
I'm sorry, I'm forgetting the guy's name. The camera guy?
Yes, the camera guy.
But he's gone. The camera guy.
I'm forgetting that. Yeah, so I don't see things changing too much in that. And so they're losing their lead in a way. And as much as I appreciate the Pixel 5's trying to fix the high price, high spec Pixel 4 problem from last year, I think it's going too much the other way in some ways, and also price-wise staying still too high. And a lot of that is millimeter wave tax, which we should talk about. It's ridiculous that the US version of the Pixel 5, folks, comes with millimeter wave whether you like it or not, and you're paying for it.
Especially when millimeter wave is so useless.
Correct. 10 people are benefiting from it.
Are 10 people even benefiting from it? I would like to meet those 10 people because I have...
In the history of time.
I have never seen a single person say like, hey, 5G has really improved my life because of this thing that I can do now, or this thing that's so much of a better experience because of it. And millimeter wave is the thing that would provide those speeds, but it's so limited in how you can use it that it doesn't. So it's not something that anybody should pay for.
No, and so that's why they should. And like my editors at Huawei were like, well, look, it's future proof. Like, and you get 3 years of updates. So this phone is great if you buy it now. And I'm like, still 2 years from now, nobody's going to be using millimeter wave. Mark my words.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not against it. I think the technology needs to exist. I think in 10 years, it'll make sense when it's cheaper and ubiquitous. And it's in stadiums and airports where high density things are happening, where we need, like, where we can have line of sight and we need like super fast performance. That's when millimeter wave is going to kick in. But right now, even 3 years from now, forget it. You shouldn't be paying for this millimeter wave on the Pixel. It should be optional. And it sucks that the pricing is, in my opinion, uncompetitive because of it. Because here's the thing, right? Yes, the Google experience is second to none. Yes, the cameras are still super incredible despite very middling hardware. But, look at this again, the Samsung Galaxy S20 FE. It's catching up. Mm-hmm. Even OnePlus is catching up with the 8 Pro in imaging.
OnePlus definitely is. Yeah, they're starting to do a lot better than they did last year.
And then I think the iPhone 12 is going to be crazy good.
Yeah.
No matter which one you pick for imaging. Because that f/1.6 lens,
Apple really came a long way with the iPhone 11 Pro last year.
Yeah,
I would have never counted on them for a camera after the 10 and the 10S. And they made a comeback last year. And I'm excited to see what the 12 series brings to the table.
Me too. So look, the reality is for me, the Pixel 5 kind of parallels a lot of my issue with the 8T, but in a different in a different direction, right? Like, it does have wireless charging. It's great. It has water resistance officially. It's great.
And it's metal and it has wireless charging.
Yeah, but it's coated in plastic basically. So
right.
It's metal with a plastic coating on it. It's nice. I have the sage green one, sort of sage. I love the names. They're really cool.
Yeah.
But again, also, it's too small. There's just a lot of things. Read my review on Hot Hardware, guys. I'll link it in the show notes. But
I wish it had better battery life. I wish it was bigger.
I mean, it has a bigger battery than last year. I think the battery life is finally on, like, good, like decent, like not lacking.
I found it lacking a little bit.
You did? Interesting. I haven't had any issues with it.
Not terribly, because I'm never too far from a charger, but
You'll find the same thing with the 8T then, because the 8T got less on my PC Mark battery benchmark. It actually did 11 hours and 41, where I think the Pixel 5 did 13 hours and something. So be aware of that. And I'm running them at high refresh because I'm crazy like that.
Of course.
Because that's what I do. Like, I would never run my phones at, like, in fact, my Pixel, not for the benchmarks, but my Pixel 5 is currently pegged in the developer settings to 90 hertz all the time.
Yeah, I think we've been clear earlier on in this show that 60 hertz makes it feel like something is wrong with the world.
Correct. Yes, we're speed demons. That's basically what you're trying to say. Let's quickly touch on the Pixel 4a 5G before we kind of finish up. But like, there's some other topics we need to cover. So I have a 4a 5G. It's still in the box. I need to unbox it along with the Wing. I will do that this weekend. So stay tuned, folks. I'll get some videos for you of all this unboxing madness. But the thing to take away here is I haven't used the 4a 5G yet, but I have used the 4a and I've used the 5 and I've read the 4a 5G reviews. And it looks like a great phone. Basically, if you want the bigger phone right now, and this is another thing I've got issues with Google about, if you want the bigger phone, you have to decide, are you willing to live with less RAM, a 60 hertz screen, no wireless charging, no water resistance, right? But if you want any of those things, more RAM, 90 hertz, water resistance, and wireless charging, then you need the 5. And then are you willing to live with a smaller phone? Now, some people are going to be super excited about the smaller phone, but I'm not. It's a little too small for me. So the 4a 5G is just the right size. But again, I'm happy to see a headphone jack. Don't get me wrong. But the rest of it, like, I cannot do a phone without wireless charging. I can probably be careful and deal with not having water resistance. But a wireless charging is killing me. It's killing me. Like, I use it all the time.
Yeah.
I can't do it.
It's also a $500 5G phone.
I mean, that's not a bad price, honestly. I think that, you compare that to,
we don't have many of those yet.
Well, the one 5G, you compare that to the Moto, right? Like, it's a way better phone than the Moto.
For sure.
Like, I'd definitely spend the $50 to get the 4A 5G all day long. And I mean, you get all that Google user experience. That's why, to me, I think that's the unsung hero in a way. Like, it lacks a whole bunch of things that I really want. But if you're going to buy a Pixel out of those three right now, I kind of think your money's best spent with the 4A 5G.
All right.
That's my takeaway. Yeah. All right, so let's move on to the next topic, which I think is super exciting because you reviewed it and I want one so bad. I love small, high quality, premium-ish, affordable laptops that cut a few corners so they're really just good at web browsing. And to me, that Microsoft Surface Laptop Go is that. What's your takeaway from that?
Premium-ish is the word.
Yeah.
and for sure.
Like Huawei, or Honor, sorry, is what I'm thinking. I think it's premium-ish.
What really impressed me about the Laptop Go is that there are no bad surprises. And like for something that it starts at $549, don't even look.
You don't want that config though, right? There's no way you're gonna buy that, right?
It's got eMMC storage instead of an SSD. There's no SSD. I mean, there's no fingerprint sensor. The one you want starts at $699. The one that they sent me is $899 with 8 gigs of RAM.
So what's the 699 have? What chip and what storage?
128 gigs of storage instead of 256 and 8 gigs of RAM.
So it's got the 8 gigs, which you want. It has 128, which is okay, but not great.
Right.
And is the chip the same, though? It's i3?
They all have an i5 1035G1.
Oh, all of them. I didn't realize.
Yes.
I thought the cheap one was an i3. Okay. But because the 699 one at least has real flash storage, right?
Yeah, it's a real SSD.
Okay, good.
So that's why that's the one that you should at least start at. They also have a business model with 16 gigs of RAM for, I think, $11.99. But
so is it metal or is it plastic? What is the deal here? Does it look like a Surface or is it actually really a Surface?
The lid is metal. The keyboard deck is metal. And then the base is polycarbonate, which I actually kind of like. It gives us this sort of two-tone kind of look.
Yeah.
It looks pretty cool. It's the color they sent me.
Is it painted plastic or is it like machined, like kind of raw plastic like Nokia used to do,
If I understand your meaning, I think it's more of a raw kind of plastic like Nokia.
Yeah,
used to do.
it's like I like when plastic is just plastic and like machined, especially because then it feels like one of those really expensive high density cutting boards, Like you know it's going to be solid and rough and tumble.
Yeah, it feels good.
Whereas painted plastic always looks so cheap, Yeah.
So the big downsides that everybody will point out is, one, the display resolution. It is less than full HD. It is specifically 1536 by 1024.
And that's on all of them?
That's on all of them. But that's also, like, remember, it's also 12.45 inches 3x2. So
it's a small laptop, right?
Right, it's small. It's that's why it's called Go. It's meant to be taken on the go. Yeah, but just around, at 1024 PX is not terrible. We do buy 15-inch laptops that are just 1080p, so this has a higher pixel density than those. The other thing is that there's no backlight on the keyboard, so those are the two.
Ooh, and none of the models have it.
None of the models have it.
Well, thanks for the rundown. That's actually pretty helpful because when we talked about last time, it was a couple of podcasts ago, but we were like, yeah, this seems cool, but we know nothing about it.
Yeah, it's pretty good. But like, my favorite thing about it is just that there are no surprises. Those two biggest drawbacks to this device, they're on the spec sheet. You can know that before you go and dive into buying this product. When you buy it, knowing those things that are on the spec sheet, there's no other big surprises that you're gonna say, oh man, I can't believe I made this decision.
I mean, it still has a Microsoft Precision trackpad and all the other goodness that you expect from a Surface, right? The keyboard feels nice and everything.
Yep, and it's a full size keyboard. It unlike the regular Surface Go where it just feels too small. Yeah, this one feels good.
Nice.
Yep.
Well, go check out Rich's review. I'll put it in the show notes. I'm stoked about the Surface Laptop Go, and I'm glad you suggested we squeeze it in. Last thing I want to talk about, where we both have some potential hands-on experience, except my experience is handling a box. Your experience is actually handling the phone because I still need to unbox mine. As we hinted earlier, is the LG Wing. We both have a review in it. We have a Verizon? No. We have a Verizon model.
Yes.
What's your take? You've been playing with it.
This is it's unique, certainly unique. I'm still kind of trying the gimbal mode, which that's awesome. That's one of the coolest things that I've seen on a smartphone camera. It's just wild. And as far as literally everything else, using it with this device, it's cool. I don't. It hasn't proven to me that it's going to be useful yet. For instance, there's a couple shortcuts on the secondary display that'll allow you to pull up 2 apps at once, so you can have Google Maps on the big display and then music app on the little display. So when you're driving, that could be totally useful, right?
Right.
I don't know how that's going to be in real life, but the gimbal mode is probably the coolest thing about this device.
Yeah, that's kind of my takeaway from what I've read so far, and I'll let you know next week, folks, when I've had a chance to play with it some more. But basically, my takeaway is this is a really interesting form factor. I'm excited it exists. I'm kudos to LG for making it happen.
Yeah, for sure. And I don't see LG as the type to take kind of risks like this. That's what's so exciting.
Well, maybe it's time, right?
Absolutely. Good for them.
Good for them. And I like this gimbal thing, and I like some of the use cases they're showing. My biggest concern is that, this is not going to stick, and we're not going to be able to review it by saying, this is the future, because it's an experiment, number one. Number two, LG's software is always an issue, and it's always lacking. And more importantly, developers need to be on board to really support this properly. Yeah. Now, Samsung is finally getting somewhere with the Z Flip and the Z Fold 2 in terms of, apps supporting special modes like, where you put the phone down halfway closed and stuff like that, and you get a slightly different UI, like YouTube does that. And it's Samsung. They've been working on this, on getting developer support forever. But LG, I don't feel like they stand a chance in that sense. And to me, that's the only thing making me kind of question this thing is it's cool. And if you want it and like it and what's in the box, like the apps that support the form factor, works for you, then go get it. I mean, why would you rock a cool phone for 6 months to a year? And I know my audience is early adopter tech savvy folks who will buy a new phone every year. So yeah, maybe consider it, but wait for our reviews, because if there's any critical thing missing, you probably don't want to live with it for a year. But I think that people should be adventurous. Like, the nice thing about this is, unlike a Z Fold 2, for example, which even closed is a bit of a compromise, this has, when it's shut or rotated in normal form factor, it's just like a Z Flip. It's just a normal smartphone. So all the things you're used to doing, you're still doing, right?
Yeah, for sure. Absolutely. And it is a little thick. It's a little bulky. Like if you're just going to use this as a regular phone all the time, then obviously it is super thick and bulky. But yeah.
It didn't feel that bad to me when I just took it out of the box briefly. Like it's basically, if you have a Galaxy Note 20 Ultra anywhere near you, it doesn't seem that much different.
Yeah, it's not bad. It's just if you're not going to use it as it's meant to be used, then you should probably get something that's thinner and lighter.
Yeah, for sure.
Right. Like why would you buy this if you're not going to flip open the display?
Yeah. So one last news item I want to touch on. It's just more an announcement for the community, for the folks out there. The Mate 40 Pro is coming very soon, or Mate 40 series, I should say. An announcement has been set for October 22nd. Mark your calendars. This should be bonkers because it might just be the last phone with a Kirin chip ever made.
Yes.
Sadly.
I can't wait to see it.
I can't wait to see it. There's the latest rumors of a hexagonal-shaped camera pod.
Yep.
Weird.
Maybe it won't be the last Kirin chip ever made. Let's see what happens next month.
Yeah, good point, right? Go vote, folks, no matter what.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I think it'll be interesting. I'm looking forward to it just for the camera craziness, right? Like,
oh, for sure.
Yeah, I mean, you can't, like, Huawei's cameras.
I love them.
You want quality, there you go,
Yeah. I still use the P30 Pro sometimes, and people that know me that aren't really into technology, and I say I'm using this thing that's a year and a half old, like they don't see me as the type of person that uses something that's a year and a half old. And it's just so good. I love it. Yeah,
the P40 Pro Plus is my muse right now.
Yeah, it's so good.
I mean, it sucks that it doesn't have GMS, but man, it's such a great phone.
I don't really mind not having GMS so much.
It's not too bad. I mean, it's good as a second phone. Like, I can still get enough stuff working, like Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and even my Outlook. I use Outlook for my Gmail.
Well, I'm a Microsoft guy.
Yeah.
None of the Microsoft apps need any kind of Google service.
Exactly. I actually use Outlook with Gmail on my P40 Pros and P40 Pro Pluses, but it's still, for me, there's a lot of other things that don't work, like, Lyft and Uber and like, not that I need that right now, but So anyway, that's something to keep an eye on for, folks. And there's lots of other news happening. This week has been a little crazy, but we try to give you most of it in a condensed form factor.
It's been a great week.
Yes. So, Rich, you want to tell folks where they can find you on the internet, like all your handles and URLs and good stuff?
Well, you can always find me on Twitter at the Rich Woods. And also you can just find my work on neowin.net. And also, everybody else's work on neowin.net. I want to give a shout out to them because the whole team has been doing a great job lately. So come check it out.
Awesome. Well, folks, you know where to find me on the internet. I'm at Tankgirl. That's TNKGRL, like the comic book character Tankgirl, but without the vowels. So if you want to talk with me about the show, do it on Twitter at Tankgirl. Ask me questions, comment, all that good stuff. Tell me I'm wrong, because I'm sure I am sometimes. And then Instagram at Tankgirl as well, without the vowels, is for photos of phones and photos taken with phones and other little tidbits of additional content. There's a YouTube channel, youtube.com/mobiletechpodcasts, where you will find some unboxing videos, hands-on videos, sometimes review videos of the devices that I'm talking about on the show here. So think of it as a visual complement to the podcast. The other thing I was going to say is the podcast lives at mobiletechpodcast.com. If you are here for the first time, or you followed Rich here, for example, maybe you can subscribe. I think you should. mobiletechpodcast.com. We're on Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, Pocket Casts, and Spotify, just to name some of the platforms. If your podcast app supports the ability to rate or review the show, please do the rating and review. It really helps others so that they know what to expect, the madness that is this show. And if you want to help the show, there is a donate link in the show notes. It's just goes to a site that brings you to a PayPal link. I appreciate you considering donating. I do this as a labor of love, and it's nice to have some support, so consider that. I also want to thank our sponsor, Audible. If you want to support me, you can support me by supporting them, basically. They're going to give you a special deal. If you join Audible, you get 30-day free trial. You get to keep a book at the end, whether you stay or not. And no matter what, if you click through and do the sign up, you will support the show. So consider doing that. Audible is a fantastic platform. I really love it because I'm a bit of a bookworm, and it's like basically reading without reading. It's kind of nice.
Can I say I love it too?
Yeah.
It's amazing.
It's great. And one of my favorite things is that, a lot of the books are read by the author. It kind of adds that special touch to the book. And there's an incredible selection. I mean, I could go on about...
They also have some really cool audio dramas.
Yeah.
I just finished The Sandman. It's amazing. Full cast audio dramas.
But yeah, folks, check it out. And it'll help the podcast. If you're not already a subscriber, consider joining. And, that will... help them, help me, help everyone. I also want to thank Audible for being a longtime sponsor of the show. They've been with us forever, so kudos to them. And Rich, thanks for being on the show. Really appreciate it.
Thanks for having me. I'm always happy to come on.
Definitely. I'll have you on again. And folks, we'll have another show next week. It's going to be a little of a special show, so stay tuned for that. And until then, cheers, everybody.
This has been the Mobile Tech Podcast with Tank Girl, proudly presented by worldpodcasts.com. You can visit us online at mobiletechpodcast.com.